Okay, so we are on the afternoon lecture of week 2, day 2. We're going to do our review by doing the practice exam that I had showed you guys the first lecture. So this one here, we're going to work on this. After this, we have some code reviews, so make sure that you are in my room for that at 3 and at 4. And there's some recommended assignments by the end of the day that we suggest you do. But I need to add likes still here, so I will get on that. All right, but let's work on the belt review first. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Before we get started, does anyone have any general questions? Does anyone have any general questions, like about anything in particular before we get started while I get set up?
Yeah, so does our input have to be the same design from a full screen standpoint, or?
So that's a great question, and I'll start the demo by talking about that. So let me get set up, and I'll explain when I have a visual that I can use to show that. So let's see here. I am in the afternoon demo. Let's create our files in here. Index.html, style.css, and script.js. So we have our 3 files, and I have the image in here that I need to pull out. Is there any way I can pull this out? Oh, I know what to do. I want to open with Finder. If I right-click the file, reveal in Finder, then I can pull it up here, double-click it from here, and then I have an image viewer here. So I'll just have this. I don't have to have it. I don't have to have a view on my Visual Studio. That kind of throws me off. Okay, so here's my goal. And Ryan, you had a great question. His question, in case anyone didn't understand, was what should this view be on our monitors? And I had a recent question about that, and I found out what the plan is going to be. So for this view, generally what I'll tell you guys is keep it about 1,000 pixels width. All right, so imagine this whole thing is 1,000 pixels width. And so when you work on your page, you can set the body to be at 1,000 and work with that. If you accidentally forget and you make the size proportional to your browser window and you have it full screen, what we'll do is we'll just zoom it in or out. Okay, but we still want it at a fixed view. We don't need to have an elastic web page. We'll work on that. We'll show you how to do that later. But what we want is a fixed view. So this is going to be 1,000 pixels. So from here to here, 1,000 px. Okay.
And for that, you're talking about for margins, correct? Or something else?
No, so when we see this image, this is going to be our wireframe, what we have to accomplish, right? This here, this view here, this is the browser. This assumes this back and forward arrow. This is the browser. We don't have to worry about copying this. This comes with our browser. But this here, this web page, the view of it, let's assume that from left to right, This is 1,000 pixels. Okay, that's the width of our wireframe, 1,000 pixels. Does that make sense, everybody? Ryan, does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Cool. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to mark up this image here. We're going to plan our attack. How are we going to plan to build our page here? What can we do? Well, I can use the Zoom tools. You can use the Zoom tools or some other annotation tools, and I would just mark it up, maybe take a screenshot, and then create the skeleton. Okay, so let's see if I can use my tool here to make a rectangle. So let me try this area here. No, didn't work. Rectangle. This area here. There we are. This would be the nav. And I noticed this section here, this can also be considered part of the nav. It's a lower part of the nav, but it's still part of it because this area below, this is the empty space. Oh, this is not, let's see here. Freehand. We need this empty space here. So this nav above, I would lump these two together in one giant nav because of this empty space. And I would call the space in the middle, this space here, I would call this the main content. Okay, so this area here, this area here, this is going to be the nav. This area here, I'm going to call this the main content. And inside the main content, I have the left column, this green column, and I have the right column here, the yellow one. Inside the left column, I have two divs. I have, what am I going to call it? I'll think of a name while I label these here. So this one's going to be left column. And the yellow one's right column. Now in our left column, we have these look like posts. So we'll have post 1 and post 2. Okay, so I'll have post 1 here and post 2 here. Post 2, post 1. Okay, so now I just have 3 more sections to label off. We'll call them by their titles there, about the dojo, Discord, and dojo rules. So we have those 3, we'll call them about the dojo, Discord, and dojo rules. Is that visible? So I'll write in as well, and then I'll take a screenshot. This one is ABT Dojo. This one is Discord. And this one is Dojo Rules. Okay, and oh, the only other thing I should name off here is the bottom nav. This is the convention that we should be writing CSS in, with a dash here, lowercase and dash. So bottom nav and top nav. Okay, I'll use this here, even though it's a little bit hard to read inside the sections here. Post 1, post 2, about the dojo, Discord, and dojo rules. Is that understandable to everyone so far, what I'm doing? And I'll go over all the JavaScript rules at the end. Query selector, we're going to make some JavaScript work if we can, if we have the time. But so far, this is my plan. And I'm going to use this to not get disoriented when I'm creating my HTML. So let's screenshot this. Alt F4. Okay. Okay, so I've got my screenshot, and I'm going to pull this up as I work. Where's my screenshot? Hold on a second. Here it is. Okay, so let's make this. So we have the nav. Let's create the nav first. So first, let's connect everything. That's the first step. Let's close everything. You can close all your tabs by saying close all. Afternoon, here I am. Okay. So here's where we connect everything in the HTML. So let's link our CSS. We type link CSS. And then our file name here, oops, don't do that. Our file name here should be the same as we see it here. It should be the same name. And let's open up our CSS. Let's target everything. We are going to say all margin 0. Padding 0. This is our CSS reset. It's important that we start with this. So always start with the reset. And let's type in something in our HTML that we know that we're here. So H1, hello world. And let's target that H1 in our CSS, just to make sure our CSS is connected. So we'll say all our H1s, we want them to be color red. We can delete this rule once we verify that it's connected. So let's see this first. Open with live server. And here's our starting point. Okay, so we've connected our CSS. Now our JavaScript, we got to connect that before we do anything. So let's make sure our JavaScript's connected. We want to console log something. Hello world, something like that. And we need to connect it at the bottom of our body. Can anyone guess why it should be at the bottom of the body?
So if you have any calculations, they can get done first before it gets to it.
That's right. That's the reason why. We want our HTML page to load. And any other JavaScript that would affect the page, we want the page to load from top to bottom first before the JavaScript touches it. Okay, so having it at the bottom of the body means that the HTML has priority in loading, and then the JavaScript would do what it needs to do. So now we've connected it, and we have the console log. So let's inspect. And if we check the console, here it is, hello world. Okay, so we're good to get started. Let's delete some of those useless rules. We don't need H1s to be read. And we won't touch JavaScript till about maybe, let's say, 3/4 of the way. So let's see here what we can do. We can at least make this JavaScript feature where we make join disappear. If you click this join button, it will disappear. And what was the other feature? The login button. Oh, we can make the login go log in to log out. Okay, so we know we're going to get at least this nav bar during this hour. So let's try to get that as our goal, but we'll still have this area here ready to be filled out. Okay, so let's get started. All right, so here's the H1 that I began with. Let's delete it and make a nav bar. I have one tag called nav. You don't have to use it, but it makes the page a little easier to read when you have a nav tag. Okay, you can call a div with the title or a class nav, and that can work. And I want to set something to my nav. I want to say nav. I want your height to be. Well, let's see how high it should be. In our screenshot, I would say if our width is 1,000 pixels, I'm going to guesstimate that this is about 100 pixels. Right? Now I'm going to shorten it to 50 pixels. And I'll make a background color of gray. And here we are. Here's our nav. See how it stretches all the way across the page? So that's fine. The navs don't have to be 1,000 width, but we have to make sure that this area below, this main content area, that this is 1,000 width. So for now, this is fine. We have our nav bar. And you know what? Why not? Let's just start with that. Let's set our body to have a width of 1,000 pixels. So here we are. We can just start with this window size, 1,000 pixels. Let's make it less confusing. All right, so this is where we're going to get started with.
So we only change the width, we don't do the height.
No, you don't need to affect the height. No, the height, no, actually, for the body, we affect the width. For the things inside the body, we affect the height. We're affecting just the width of it, the whole entire page first. So we're setting it to 1,000 pixels. That way we know how proportional it is to everything else. So this we're going to imagine is 1,000 pixels wide. So the body's 1,000 pixels. So we shorten our window to be that width there, 1,000 pixels, and we're good to continue. Okay, so now we need to create this bottom nav. Let's create the bottom nav. So we have nav at the top being 50 pixels. Actually, you know what? We have in our nav section the top nav and the bottom nav. So let's create two divs. So the first one will be top nav. Second one will be bottom nav.
So when you gave the nav its background color, you just let it go as far as it was going to go, and that's how you can determine that it's the 1,000 pixels.
Yes. I think I understand your question. Yes. I just determined it was No, the width of the body is 1,000 pixels. That's why the gray goes up to that point. Does that make sense there?
Right, that's what I mean. Like, so where it stops at, that's how you know that's the stopping point for the 1,000 pixels.
Yes. That's it. Exactly. And I noticed I made the whole nav height of 50 pixels. We just need the top nav to be 50 pixels. So let's just change that. Let's go dot top nav. I just changed it. So there should be no difference. It's just, I just shifted the class from being this one to this one. I switched the class to top nav from this element nav. Now we need the bottom nav. Let's color it a visible color other than white so we can see it properly. And then we'll switch it to white when we can stop measuring it. So we'll just say bottom nav. We'll make a height of, so if this is 50, I would say this is maybe like 220. And a background color of red. Wow, that's way too much. Someone said way 50. I think that's the better number. Oh, that's 250. Okay, that's way better. All right, so we have our top nav, our bottom nav. Now let's work on this area here, the main content. So I will create that div underneath my nav, and we have to leave comments. So we already started off a little bit sloppy here. So let's add a nav section. And we can say nav section here. Okay. Now we're going to go on to the main content. So we'll say main content. Div dot main content. Let's organize our view format document. And if I don't have anything inside the divs, it will align them like that. So, okay. And let's create our CSS as well. Main content. The width is going to be 1,000 pixels already because our main content, the div takes up the full width of its container, and the container is the body. So the width is fine. We need to affect the height of the main content. So the height, I think this looks kind of like a square, this bottom section area. So I think it would be maybe 900 high. So we'll say dot main content height 900 pixels. And background color blue. Okay, so now we have this bottom area filled out. Let's now shorten it. Actually, let's make it so that the main content is only, how do we diagram it? This area here in the blue, this blue border, the outer one. So let's shorten it to that area. So we want a main content that is we can make it 500. No, it's not the height that I'm trying to affect at this point. Excuse me, it's the width. Okay. And now we notice that actually it needs to be centered. So we can add some margin. I don't want to calculate the exact margin. In fact, what we could do is we can center everything. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to center everything by targeting this nav. And I'll say to the nav, margin 0 auto. Did it not center? Oh, it is centered. Okay, the nav is in the body. The body needs to be, the body needs this rule. Okay, that's better. Now we can shorten the width. Okay, so now that we said margin 0 auto, we centered our body inside our window. So when we stretch our window, it looks like the white space on the end. So now we're just going to stretch our window to be to the center here. That's what this rule does, margin 0 auto. Okay, I'll leave that comment there for those that want to see this code in the GitHub. Now I'm going to center this blue div. So we don't need this nav. And let's go to the blue div. Let's center it. Margin 0 auto. Okay, so now we're centered here. And we can increase the width because we know it's a little skinny. All right, so this is looking better. This is closer to what we need. All right, so this is the areas that we said we would fill out. Now what do we need left? Can someone say it?
Our posts.
What was that?
Do class for post 1 and 2. Actually, no, left column.
Yes, first we want to start with the columns. The reason is, do you see here, we can't make rows out of this. This area here, it's like, it's not even enough to make rows out of this area and divide this section like that. We have to make 2 columns. So let's make our left and right column. And then we are almost done with the layout. So column left, we have our div.left column. And our div.right column. All in main content. Let's add some comments. Left column. Right column. Okay. And for left and right column, we want to add some dimensions. So left column, we're going to say dot left column. Width, we want to make it about half of its container minus a little bit so that we have that space in the middle. So, oh, and the left-hand side is much bigger than the right. So, or not much bigger, but it is bigger. So it's like 60%, maybe 55% of the whole thing. And so we can use percentage in this case if we don't want to calculate the exact pixel amount. Let's see if that's going to reach it. And we want the height to be the full amount. What's the height of its container? 700 pixels. And so let's make this background color green. All right, so here's our left column, the green and the blue. Now let's make a right column. So we need to, oh, the blue is much taller. Let's make the height here 700. Okay, that's better. Actually, even 600 is better. Height 600. And now that we got a 55% width, let's inspect the green. If I click it, I see here the pixel width 385 by 600. Okay, so that's how many pixels wide this green one is. So we don't have to convert that back in the width, but I'm just wanting to let you know, if you wanted to find the pixel amount without having to, for example, if this main were to stretch later on when you're creating dynamic pages, you may want to account for the stretch of a page. You can set the percentage, measure the pixels that way, then set it back to pixels if you don't want it to stretch. Okay, that's just a side note. We don't need to get caught up on that. We need to create our right column. Our right column, let's make it pink. Right column. The width. Maybe 40%. And height 600 pixels. Background color pink. And it doesn't show up because it's right below. So what do we need to do in this case to make it go to the right?
Flex.
Flex on what?
The container div, the
Mhm.
main content.
Yep. So if we say display flex here. Now we have the blue space on the right. So what can I do to make the blue space go in between the green and pink? We need to make some separation, create some
Yeah.
separation.
Create a gap.
Yep, gap, or what's the other rule?
Margin.
Justify content.
Margin.
Justify
No.
content. That sets the content, the children, and I can set it to the full width without having to play with the pixel size of the gap. We can say justify content space between. That sets it to the most outer edges. The ones on the most outer edges go to the most outer edges. So whatever that pixel amount blue is, I don't have to guess what the gap is. I just say justify content space between. Okay, and now we just need to create the inner organs, I guess, of these two columns. So let's go ahead and do that. We have 2 on the left and 3 on the right. Post 1, post 2, and then these about Dojo, Discord, and Dojo rules. So let's create this. In the green, let's create post 1 and post 2. So in the left column, we have post 1. Div dot post 1, and we'll just copy it and change the 1 for 2. 2. Okay, there we are. Post 1 and post 2. Now I'm gonna put it underneath my left column because it's more related to my left column than my right. So we'll say post 1. And I need it to be a square. So let's give it a background color of red or something random, visible. Magenta. Okay, and width. 386 pixels. and height. 300. Okay, so there it is. There's my post 1. Let's make post 2. Okay, so I can just copy this, paste it, and here's a CSS or Visual Studio trick. If you hold down, if you copy or highlight a word, it'll highlight all the similar words. If I hold down Command or Control on your PC, Command and then the letter D on my keyboard, it'll highlight the next similar word to it. And then if I press the right arrow, I can delete them both at the same time and edit them both at the same time. So I have post 2 and I want to make it orange. Okay, and there we are. Post 1 and post 2. They actually maybe should be a little less tall. So I'll make them 280. And on post 2, I'll add a little margin top.
You got 2800.
Ooh. Okay. Oh, did I do it again? No. Oh, here it is. Yeah. Okay. And some margin top on the orange. Margin top. 30 pixels. Okay, there we are. Okay. So far, so good. Now we just need our 3 on the right column.
So the green that's showing at the bottom,
That's part of the column.
no, it's about like at the very, very bottom.
Yeah.
So that's okay to leave like that?
This is I mean, I can extend the height of this a little bit. Maybe it does. These are the small details. I don't need to get this super perfect at this point. We're getting the big picture. So there we are. Okay, so here now we want to do our right column. Our right column, we are going to say, okay, create a comment. Isaiah doesn't like the color of my columns. He says they're too bright, so I'll make a dark color for you, Isaiah. We'll say in the right column about the dojo. So div dot about dojo. So about dojo. Background color black. Width. The width is going to be, what's the width of the right column? Oh, the right column is 40%, so we want this to be 100% of its width. We don't know what that amount is, that pixel amount, so we'll just say 100%. And we need a height for it to show up. We need a height of, if this is 600 pixels, this is going to be 300, I'd say. Oh, that's way too big. Height needs to be like, there we are. No, that's way too small. Wow, I keep dodging the amount I need. There we are, 200 is good. Now we need this middle one. Okay, so let's work on that middle one. On the right column, we want a neighbor to the about dojo, so that's a sibling. And we said this one's going to be called Discord. So div dot Discord. Might as well create the last one as well. Okay. Dojo rules. Div dot Dojo rules. Okay. About Dojo. Discord. Dojo rules. Okay, so now let's color these blocks. We want to color the About Dojo section. Did we do that already? Yes, we made a black one. Now the second one, Discord. Discord. We'll create the comment. Discord. And background color, aqua, why not? Width, same as the neighbor up top, or from the rule up top. And the height, that's going to be 100 pixels. So let's check this one. There we are. We need a little margin top as well. Okay, looking good. Now we just need this bottom right one. So let's create that. Dojo rules. Let's create a comment. Div dot oh no. Dojo dash rules. Background color. Salmon. No, that's gonna blend in with the pink. Someone give me a color.
Rouge.
Yellow.
He gave me the one number. I can't spell. Okay, yellow. Height. Make it this one's gonna be 300. Width. 100% of its container, the column. Okay, I think it's a little too tall. Maybe 270 is the number. Yeah, no, it's even less than that because we have to create some margin. So minus 30 maybe. Yeah. Then we have a margin top of 30. Okay, and that's all we need for the template. Actually, we can push the yellow one down a little bit more.
Should have been 40. You did 230 and not 2. So you said it was gonna be minus 30. Yeah.
There we are. Okay, so this is what we need to create before we start filling in the details. Okay, once we have this, then we can remove the background colors and start creating everything inside. So I would go in and start from top to bottom. I'd start creating everything in the nav that you see here, the buttons, the search, the little image there. Then I'd go into this red section, create this area and these buttons. And that's what I'll do now. I'll try to accomplish the gray and the red with the 15 minutes left we have in this lecture. As for the sections below, then I would go in and fill that out after I would have finished the nav. Okay, I wouldn't normally jump to JavaScript, just completing a JavaScript in the nav, but since we only have 15 minutes left, I'm just going to create the nav and the JavaScript that corresponds with it. Okay, so how do we feel so far about what I have accomplished and the direction you have to go when you start your project? Okay, this is why we did all of those group activities of creating flags and creating that artist replication, so that we can create these whenever we see a wireframe like this. So now I need to fill this out.
I actually have a question about the margins. So what does zero auto do again?
Margin zero auto centers that div
Oh,
within its parent, and so I applied it to the body.
okay,
So the body is at the very center of the window.
okay.
It's in the center of the HTML tags. Okay, so let's continue. Let's go on to the header here. So let's work on this. It has an image. It has that word coded, the search go button, and then it's this section on the right. So when I look at this here, I see this grouping on the left and this grouping on the right. So I'm going to call that top left nav, top right nav. Those are my names for that. Top left nav, top right nav. Okay, so let's do that. I'm going to go in the top nav. So I'll say in here, top div dot top left nav. I don't really need to further classify comments at this point. All the major sections are named off. I can identify the intersections without so many comments. So I have div top left nav and then div dot top right nav. Now they're created. I've opened them up. So I need to go to my nav section in my CSS. Where am I in my nav section? Here I am. Okay, top nav. So let's create this here. Top left nav. All right, so the width of this, I'd say if the width of the whole page is 1,000, this is going to be half of that or less than half of that. So maybe 450 pixels. So width 450 pixels. Background color green, just so I can see it. And take 100% of the height that you're in. Okay, so let's see it. Okay, there's my top left nav. That's where it's going to contain this section here. Now let's make my top right nav. So do that right below. Top right nav. And width, I'm going to say it's if that's 450, then this is going to be 250. See how I'm just guesstimating 250 pixels. If it's too big or small, I'll just figure it out. Background color, orange, and height, I want it to be 100% of its container. So let's see. Oh, where'd it go? Oh, okay. So I created it, top right nav, and it's not visible, right? We have to say display flex on the container so that we see top left nav and top right nav on the same level within top nav. So we have to target top nav and say display flex. Then we move to zoom tools. Okay. And there it is. Now we need to push it all the way to the right. So we can do that by using justify content space between. Now that sets that to the most outer edges. And if I want to push it a little to the left, I just target the orange one and push it to the left a little using margin. So I can just say margin right. Maybe 20 pixels. Did that do anything? No, I did it to the wrong one. So I'll just move it down. I'll just make this margin left actually. So margin left 20 pixels. Now I just affected that little space there. Okay, so now I'll actually do what I plan to do. Margin right. This is gonna be 30 pixels. Okay, good enough. Okay, so now let's remove the background colors. We don't need it. We know they're in the right place. And we are going to fill them in with what their contents describe. So here we have an image, an H1, and a search input, and a button. So top left nav. Let's bring in that image. So I have to bring it in from here. So let me bring this in here. Okay, so now I have my images. Let's access them. I'm going to grab the first image, top left of the page, this cat. So let's grab this cat, top left nav. Let's widen this so we can see the code better. Okay, so we said it was an image. Which image is it? Is it this one? I think it's this one. Yeah, let's just use this cat. Image src / go to my icons, cat, and let's say cat image. Okay, there it is. It's huge. We need to target it, shorten it. So let's go to the top left nav rule and target the image. Let's delete those comments that are unnecessary. Top left nav, top left nav. Give me the descendant who's the image and say the height is going to be 100%. And the width is going to be 20 or maybe 30 pixels. Okay, wider than that. There we are. There's a little cat.
Quick
Okay.
question.
Yes.
You also tag the image as like an ID, and you can edit it on the CSS side as well.
Right.
Or amend
I
it.
can do that. Yeah, but there's only one image in my top left nav, and I didn't feel like adding an ID, so I just targeted it this way.
Okay, and I guess I'm not too familiar with the greater sign.
What this does is it
yeah.
says, give me your direct descendant. Give
Okay.
me all your direct descendants that are images. And since there's only one in there, then it grabbed it and I was able to edit it.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And
Okay.
what would a comma do?
Comma? Where?
Yes, that. Now I've seen others where they put.
Oh, okay. So sometimes you can affect more than one direct descendant. Let's say I had something else like a p tag that I wanted its height to be 100% and width to be 50 pixels. For some reason, a p tag is so small that we just need it to be like that. So we can say comma, apply this rule to the direct descendants who are also p tags. Does that make sense? comma says, and also this one. Target the image and also the p tag that's a direct descendant. Does that make sense, Yancy?
Yes, it
Oh,
does.
Okay. I'll just keep explaining it in different words until somehow clicks. Okay, so we have the cat image. Let's see our example. We have this. We don't need this messy picture anymore. We've made our columns. Let's look at this here. We have our word coded. Okay, so let's make that an H1, even though it may be small, it's the first header we see on the page. Okay, so we're going to make it an H1 coded. Okay, so it's in the right underneath the image. So let's go underneath the image here and say H1 code it. Got it. How big is it? It's not too big. Okay. And so we need everything inside this top left section to be flex as well. Don't you see it's stacking already, so we need to make it to be horizontal. So we need to say whoever your parent is, you need to be flex. So who's the parent? Right now it's the top left nav. So we'll say display flex. All right, so there it is. And now the word coded is pushing to the very top. The word coded is pushing to the very top. So the reason for that is because when you say display flex, all the things in the row, all the items in the row of flex need to say align item center in order to not take up the full height, and it levels out in the center there. So if you say align item center, it'll push those items in the flex row to the center. Okay, so that's how we do that. And we also have a search bar and a go button. So let's take care of that. Search bar, so that's a input type text. There it is. Okay. And it has the word search in it. So we can say placeholder search. So let's see that. Okay, placeholder search there. And we need the go button. So let's work on that go button, and we'll say button go. Okay, so we have the top left of the nav section there. I realize we're cutting out time here, but I think we can spend a little bit more time on this lecture to get to the goal we need. And if we push into code review time and that code review time pushes into the next one, I think we can still work it out because there's not as many in the second code review today. We'll still get everyone covered and reviewed. So let's continue until we get to the whole nav. Let's do the right section of the nav. We have two buttons on the right. So top right nav button times 2. Oh, okay, it didn't let me do that. Button. Okay, 2 buttons. What do they say? They say get app and login. Get app. Log in. Okay, there are my buttons. I need to make these buttons align item center after using display flex. The reason they're side by side already is because that's how buttons naturally are. They're inline, but we need to make it still display flex and also align item center. So let's grab the top right nav, say display flex. And align item center.
You said in the top right, because you're doing the top left with the image.
Ooh, oh, thank you. I didn't catch myself there. Then we will cut that out and Thank you for that. Okay, now that's where it's supposed to be. Okay. So we're getting more or less to this image. I think our margin right of 30 pixels is a little too much. Make it 10 pixels. And if we refresh, how wide is the top nav? Because what I want to know is why those buttons aren't a little bit more to the right. So if I inspect and I click here, oh, the buttons are in the block. They're just on the leftmost side of the block. So I can use justify content to make it go all the way to the right.
Flex end.
Yes, justify content flex end. Or I can first adjust the height of these buttons to the natural height of what they would be. So let's target these buttons. So the top right nav, let's fix, let's work from left to right. So let's work on the detail of this top left nav before we get to these buttons. Okay, it's good to do things in order. Left to right, top to bottom. Okay, left to right. We get the image, the code it, search, and the go. So here we can spread things out a little more. So let's affect the gap on this one. Top left nav needs a gap. Oops. Top left nav needs a gap. But justified content is already on it. No, top left nav. Gap of maybe 20 pixels.
Does gap only get activated when you use flex?
Right. Yes. That's correct. Gap has to be exactly where flex is. Good question.
And what does gap actually do?
It creates, let me put it side by side so you can see here. It creates a space between all the flex items of that designated pixel amount. So what it did,
Okay.
what it did in
So-
this case, yeah. So if
Okay,
I,
perfect. Yeah, yeah. I was just wondering why you wouldn't use margin, but I understand now because it just makes exactly unified gap. Perfect.
right. Yep. See now, okay, so I have it spread out a little bit better. We need the go button to be a little bigger. So top left nav. Button. Maybe
Did he
padding.
just add the gaps to all the items using the gap?
Yes, all the flex items. You can add a space between those items using gap.
Oh, good.
Yep. So, and we want the width to be 10 pixels. Ooh, that made it worse. Okay. Okay, so there's our go button, and the background color should be yellow. Okay, this is coming along. I think our search needs to be a little bit longer, so we'll say top left. Top left nav, our input. We want that to be a width of I don't know, 100 pixels. Okay, bigger than that. 140, 150. Okay, that's better. Okay.
Wait.
Yes.
How come you didn't use a greater than sign for
Oh, I could have. This targets the direct descendants. I'm just trying to keep it consistent. And without the greater than sign, this targets all the descendants, even the grandchildren. So there's no reason I'm being picky. I'm just being picky and sticking to one.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Okay, so now let's affect these buttons on the right. Let's increase their size. So we go to the top right nav. Top right nav. Oh no, I'm already here. What am I doing? Oh, yes, I know what I'm doing. I'm doing the buttons. Okay. And we said the height can be 100% of the container. And the width is going to be 60 pixels. Okay, let's check this out. Okay. It's got to be way wider than that. 80 pixels. Okay, that's better, but they're way too high. So I don't need them to be 100% of the height. I'm going to make them 90% of the height. Less than that. Oh, what's affecting the height is also a line, is the flex that needs to have a line item center. So we need to make that line item center. So that's all right. Top right nav, that's okay. The height still is what's affecting it. So let's not use a percentage. I want to use a pixel amount. It's the same. Okay. Top right nav button. Okay, that's a little better. Yeah. Okay. It doesn't need to be pixel perfect. We can add the finishing touches if we have some time at the end. Go with the rough, picture of it first before wasting time on getting the exact, gap between each little thing. But we can affect the gap between these. Top right nav, we send a light item center, and we can say gap, 20 pixels. And there's the gap between the buttons, and that's good enough. We can add the color, and that'll be it. Oh, okay. So now we need to individualize the color for each button. What we can do to quickly fix that, because this is going to target both the buttons, is differentiate between each button. We can add a margin, maybe a margin right to each one, actually. No. I'm trying to affect the color. Okay, so what I can do is I have to give it a class. Div dot, no, it's going to be class equals login. That's how I'll do it. Okay, so login. This will be the rule right after button. So first I'll affect a rule that will affect them both. Background color blue. And now I'll target the second one to make it yellow. Background color yellow. And that, because it comes after this one. Oh, it didn't affect it. Hold on. Login dot login. Background color yellow. Okay. I don't think it is working as I thought it would. Let me see here. Okay, see, this rule is not being applied even though it's coming after this. So I need to give a specific class to each one. So I'll just take this here, apply it to login. And I'll say this one is called get app. So I'll just change this to get app. And there we go. Okay, now that's the font color white. Okay, now let's work on this bottom nav, work on the JavaScript, and I think that's enough to close this out with. Okay, so on this bottom section here, we have what I see as 2 layers. We have this here and this here. Those are 2, well, they are on 2 different rows of this whole section. So we need to create these and then find out the spacing to keep them at this level here. Once we finish that, we work on the JavaScript and close it out. So let's do that. Okay. So that section, the top one there, I want to call that anyone have any good names? Bottom nav upper. There we go. Just the top section, top half of the bottom nav. Bottom nav upper. So I'm in the bottom nav. And I want to say div dot bottom nav upper section. And we'll just copy this for the lower section. Now we have our 2 divs there. We need to fill it with content. So we have the image, the title, and then this button. So in the top section here, we have bottom nav upper an image. It's the same cat picture. Cat img. We have the H2, I'll call it an H2. C dojo. And the join button. Okay, so here's my 3 things on the bottom nav upper. Now we need to control them to make them go side by side. So we need to affect the image in this case. So how do we affect this image? Let's go into bottom nav upper now. Where are we? In our CSS, top right nav. And this is our nav buttons, bottom nav. Okay. Here we are, bottom nav upper. We say the image, well, let's affect the image so we can see it. So we'll say the image, keep it small. Height, 40 pixels, width 40 pixels. Okay, there it is. Now we can get a better view. So let's make the background color something else. Let's change the background color to white so we can view it. Not of the image, but of the whole thing. So sorry, I didn't mean to put it there. So it stretches across. We need to shorten the width. So width 60 pixels. It can be wider than that. 100 pixels. Okay. It's getting closer. Okay, that's better. And I want the display to be flex. So now they're side by side. I want them to be a line item center. Okay. Now I want to move this white section to this area in the bottom here. So let's go ahead and move that. So we'll say margin left. 300 pixels. This one will just control by the margin. That's too much. Probably 100. Okay. 120. $30, $40. Okay, that's a little better. Okay. And now let's give it some margin top. Ooh, no, we don't want to do that.
So you said for the test we shouldn't give too much margin over 70 with this count, or is this different?
I don't remember saying that. Giving too much margin over 70.
And I think somebody said there was in the comments, one of the TAs, I think.
Yeah, that was me.
Oh, okay. Sometimes, you know, it helps when you can't really, it doesn't affect anything else. This is just one wide open area. I can push the margins. What else I can do is I can use the flex and say by the flex column how wide this is, but I already went with affecting the width and height. So if I affect the margin, it should be fine. So Vince, were you told anything about that rule in particular about 70 pixels for margin?
No, just like some if it's high.
Okay.
That was just a general number I threw out. You know, I just feel
Okay.
like there's other ways to do it. Like maybe this isn't a line items, you know, end or something. I don't know. But
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
also depending on the size you're using, you know, maybe a margin 160 is fine if it's a really if you're using big pixel numbers, you know.
Yeah. If it's in a wide open area like this and nothing, it's not affecting anything else, it's not pushing it, and it's, you know, it's not all bad. Okay, having a little margin. It's just pushing this out. So I just need to push it from the top. So if I go to bottom nav and I add a little padding top, and I say like 60 pixels. Okay, so that pushes it down and that makes the whole thing bigger. So let's shorten the height of this. Okay, all right, and that's more or less where it needs to be. Maybe justify content. Ooh, justify content space between. That will allow for a little bit of space between each item. Okay, so there it is. I can make this a little bigger and make our button bigger. Let's affect the button. Width 80 pixels, height 40 pixels. Okay, background color, yellow. Oh, it's red. Okay, so let's take away, or let's change this background color to something else. Let's make it green. Okay, so now we need the this area below, and then we'll add the JavaScript. So let's finish this up. Okay. Okay. All right. So we said bottom nav upper. Now we're in bottom nav lower. And we have this list of links. So let's make this a list of links. So bottom nav lower, unordered list. And we have how many links? 4. So li times 4. And let's open these up. And we have an A tag. Let's copy these into each li. We don't need them to have any place to go, so we can just put like a hash symbol in there. And they say posts wiki C dojo and Discord. Okay, there it is. Let's now affect the styling for this. Close this session out. It's going to go on until we finish the JavaScript, because I promised that we do one JavaScript at least. And so I have to explain everything I do. That's why I can't go at the pace I'd like, but let's continue. So bottom nav lower. Let's create the rule for this one here. Let's make it a background color of orange so we know where it is. Height of 50 pixels. Width of 100 pixels. Okay, so there it is. Now let's move it to the left, from the left. We say margin left. What did we say for the one above? Margin left 160. You can affect the width as well, make it wider. Okay, now we need to say on the UL, bottom nav lower, UL, display flex. Okay, so now they're side by side. Line item center. Now they're, oh, not totally centered aligned yet. Okay, I need this to be the height 100% of its container, the UL within this section. So now it's centered. Okay, let's increase the width by a little more. And let's say list style type, none. So that takes away the dots. And on the A tags, since they're the only A tags I've used so far on the page, I can just say A and color black. How do we take away the underline? Text decoration, none. Okay, let's spread these out. Let's spread them out. So we say justify content, space between. Okay, now they're spread out. And all I have to do now is take away the background colors. So remove this background color, remove the green. And the white. Okay, and there we have the top nav section. If I'm coding and this were my test, this is how I would leave this if I've worked up to this point, and I would move on to the main content. The small details like this one being red, or the nav or the search bar not being as long as this search bar. If I'm worried for time and if I'm on a crunch on time, I'll save the small details, making it pixel perfect for the very end. Want to get the big picture of everything. Make it look somewhat visibly similar. And then fix up the details, round the corners, change the font color. Okay, so now let's do one JavaScript thing here. All I'm going to do is make it so that when I click join, it will remove. All right, let's, while I get started on that, take a poll. How well do we understand all the CSS I've done so far? Okay, so let's make this join button disappear. So when we click this join button, here it is. Now we open up our JavaScript. Let's delete this hello world. When we click this join button, on click equals, and we want to remove this button, right? So we are going to create a function and pass along this. This will bring along the button with it. So we want to say remove me, and then pass along this. So let's create our function now. Function remove me, and it receives an element. That's what it's going to receive this. So let's call this element, and we'll say element dot remove. So now if we click it, it's gone. And Flex made this move over as soon as it was destroyed. Okay, if that happens on the test and something slightly adjusts, don't worry so much about what the grade would be, but try to fix it either way. But that's the bare minimum, one JavaScript done. All right, the other one would be to change this login to be log out. Let's see if we can do that. So this login here, we say on click, we want it to switch. So we'll pass in this. Did we do this correctly? On click. On click, call the function, switch me. And then we'll pass in this. I don't think it liked that function name switch. So I have to make a way around that. So call this switch me. That's going to switch the login from on to login to log out. So we are going to use this switch function, and we're going to receive it. And we're going to say if element dot inner text is equal to login, then element dot inner text, we're going to assign it to be log out. And and we are going to say else, and we're going to say do the opposite thing. So switch this to login. Oops, so it says log space in. So we have to say log space in. And okay. How about that? So if we click it now, it'll switch from login to log out. Make sure this is spelled the same. Log in, log out, log in, log out. So 2 JavaScript done. I don't have time for another one. We have to go to code reviews now. But that's 2 JavaScript features done. And we did it in about an hour and 20, 30 minutes. Okay, so I would just have to fill in the rest here and do the 3rd JavaScript, which would be to increase the likes. But this here would be the same as we have in our likes assignment. So you guys have to do something similar here to get this done. All right, I'll push this code to GitHub so you guys can stare at this and see how I did this. You can complete it if you want, or you can start from scratch and use my template here as a way that you can reference to see how you're doing. Okay, so this is all on GitHub. I'll repost it so you guys get this detailed code there as well. And you can get these images on the GitHub as well so you can test yourself. Okay, so now we're gonna, oh, go ahead.
All right, yeah, so we'll be supplied with the images and icons, right?
They're in the GitHub. So if you go to the calendar, go to GitHub. Oops.
Yeah, I'm talking about the exam. Like, so like if there are any icons and images in the
Yes, in the exam, yes. Yes, in the exam. Yep. So it's in the morning lecture right now. This everything here, these images at this place in the GitHub here. Okay, so let's take a look at our calendar and see what we're doing. We're going to do code reviews for the rest of the day. 3 o'clock and 4 o'clock session. We have to get on that now. And the assignment, the core assignment is the likes. Okay, so I'll create a link for that in case you don't know. Likes is the core assignment done. You have to do by the end of the day. Okay, any other questions before we break out? Okay, then we'll stop the lecture and the recording.
You about to go do code reviews?
Yes.